Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call to order this subcommittee meeting on economic development and natural resources. And to start out with here, if we could open the roll.
There's no
Here? Nope. Just do a voice vote. Okay, here we go. Let's start here with Senator Reeves.
Senator Reeves, I'm here.
All right. Senator Stewart is not yet with us.
I'm Senator Favola from Arlington.
Scott Survell, 34th Senate District. I used to have more state parks than any other member of the entire legislature, but now I only have one, thanks to redistricting.
There you go.
Arlington has a park in every neighborhood.
Yeah,
No, state
and
parks.
Senator Survell, they were taken away from you for a reason. So, at any rate.
Shopping cart.
I was just
And I'm
doing a
Senator-
promotional thing for Arlington.
Yeah. And I would be your chairman, Senator Dave Marsden from Fairfax. And staff, if you'd introduce yourselves.
Kendra Brown Shiplet, I'm responsible for the staff, Senate Finance and Appropriations.
Mary Ann Horch with Senate IT.
Thank you all very much for being here. And today, we have an overview of the Virginia Economic Development Partnership and Economic Development Incentive Program by my good friend Jason L. Kuby, who is President and CEO of the VEDP. Jason, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the warm introduction and invitation to be with you today. And good afternoon to all the members, and congratulations to the folks who are joining this committee. Would you like me to go ahead and proceed,
Yes,
sir?
please.
Okay, well, great. Well,
Yeah.
thanks again. I will say, just for context, through Senator Marsden and others, have developed a great relationship with this committee over the years. So many of you are new to this committee, so I'm going to give you a little bit of background on VEDP, where we fit in, and some of the key programs, just as kind of a baseline, if that's okay. Just to organize our discussion today, I'm going to give you some context for the organization itself. Again, focus on some of the key programs that you should be aware of, and then also some of the budget priorities we have for this current legislative session. So let's go ahead and dive in. I think most of you know that VEDP is one of the state authorities. We were organized that way back in 1995. The idea being that economic development needed to be nonpartisan. It needed to be something that would have continuity over time as administrations come and go to ensure that the relationships are managed and that the strategy is managed in a continuous way. And that's worked really, really well for the most part along the way. We've got about 200 team members, mostly here in the Commonwealth, but we do have a few folks representing us in other regions of the world to generate foreign direct investment to Virginia. One of the things the General Assembly charged VEDP with a few years ago is the responsibility to develop a strategic plan for economic development of the Commonwealth. This is something that is not just a strategic plan for VEDP, it's also a strategic plan for all of economic development in the Commonwealth. So it's something that we take seriously, we do it collaboratively. That process of developing the strategic plan, which we've updated every couple of years since 2017, has consistently articulated 5 big economic development goals for Virginia. The first goal is to position Virginia as a leading state for growth, particularly job growth, to move Virginia from sort of a middle-of-the-pack position to a leadership position in terms of its economic growth. Secondly, to do that in a way where every region of the Commonwealth participates in that growth. When we talked about positioning Virginia as a leader, what we heard from a lot of regions of Virginia is, hey, that's great. We want to be part of that progress. So that means that we want each region of Virginia to be in positive territory from a jobs perspective. Thirdly, we want to maintain and strengthen Virginia's business climate. We want to be a top state for business. The stronger our product is, the easier it is going to be able, easier it's going to be to sort of sell it, if you will, as a business location. Fourth, VEDP wants to be one of America's most effective and impactful state economic development organizations, mostly so that we can nail those first 3 big goals. And then finally, we want to live up to our name. Virginia Economic Development Partnership. Put the P in VEDP every single day as a super collaborator because there are a lot of partners that are part of this team sport. Yes, sir.
Jason, just a quick question. I know there's been some changes in the rating agencies on best state to do business. What is the general consensus as to where Virginia is right now?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we closely track business climate rankings in part because that is a reflection of where we are, but also it kind of reinforces our reputation, if you will. If you look at sort of the most common and meaningful state business climate rankings, Virginia on average is about number 5 right now. We're better in some, a little bit worse in others. We typically do well in the rankings that are based on objective measures of the data. When you look at the strength of our workforce, when you look at the strength of our economy and so forth, just based on objective data measurements, we do relatively well in those. Where we do a little bit less well, somewhat less well, is in the rankings that are based on perceptions. When you survey CEOs, when you survey site consultants, we typically are not in the top 5. We are sometimes just outside the top 10. We think part of the reason for that is because the Commonwealth has not invested nearly as much in marketing for economic development as many of our competitor states. So we have not told our story as vigorously as many of our competitors. This slide here, and I think you guys are following along on your screens, is really just to give you an overview of some of our key functions that we have at VDP. I think everybody knows us as sort of the part of state government that markets Virginia as a business location, the part of state government that recruits new businesses to Virginia. One of the things that is a common misperception is that about 2/3 of the projects we work on are expansions of existing Virginia businesses. So, you know, the new projects, the new companies make the headlines, but 2/3 of our work is supporting the growth and expansion of existing Virginia businesses. We have a very capable trade development team that helps about 500 Virginia companies every single year build the capabilities to export their goods and services to other places around the world. Your committee has helped us do that very much. We play a significant coordination role. We also, in addition to sort of the sales function, the transactional function, we put a lot of energy, as I was just saying to the chairman's question, into benchmarking where Virginia stacks up competitively against other states for the sectors that we're trying to cultivate here. So sort of a policy function of understanding where we stack up, what we need to do to strengthen our position. We have a good research team that does a variety of things. We also manage a number of performance-based incentives. And then these bottom 2 items are some of the places where we've put a lot of our energy over the last few years in getting stronger. A lot of energy into improving Virginia's capacity to develop a very strong workforce solution. When a company is looking for a location, we want to be really competitive on that factor because it's always at the top of the list. And then similarly, we needed to do a lot more to improve our inventory of project-ready sites. We've done that with a lot of support from the General Assembly over the last couple of years. That's been another place that's received a lot of energy. Won't spend a lot of time here on the details, but I will just say the partnership that we have with the General Assembly, with the administration, many other state, regional, and local partners is essential to our work. You know, this is a team sport, so thank you for your partnership in this. I want to just highlight for a second the impact that this committee and the General Assembly has had on economic development through some of the budgetary commitments that y'all have made. There have been more than four, but four really profound, I think, things that have happened over the last few years. What you're looking at on the left-hand side is basically the numbers from the FY23 budget, and then on the right-hand side, the impact. Until FY23, the Commonwealth had not invested in site development at a level that was anywhere near commensurate with what we needed. Typically in the past, the number was either zero or single-digit millions of dollars. It was in FY23 that for the first time the Commonwealth invested on the order of $100 million in that year in site development. That's a competitive matching grant program. It had a tremendous amount of demand. We received more than $340 million in requests for the $90 million that was available. Invested in 21 sites. It's already having an impact. In this current budget year that we're in today, FY24, we have about $125 million in additional site grants funding available. We've received more than about $800 million in requests for that $125 million. We have a lot of catching up to do in Virginia. Other states have been doing this at this level for many, many, many years now. So we've got a lot of catching up to do. You have invested in the Virginia Office of Education Economics, which does a lot of things. This is a very cutting edge part of Virginia's state government. Basically, it is providing data that will enable Virginia to spend much more efficiently and effectively in the education and workforce space. Basically, what the Virginia Office of Education Economics, or VOE, does is it helps decision makers, including y'all, understand the connections between what's happening in education and workforce activity and how that shows up in terms of labor market outcomes. We really want those two things to be well aligned. The small amount of money we're putting into VOE can generate enormous returns for the investments that we're making in education and workforce throughout the Commonwealth. I mentioned a second ago, I may not have mentioned a second ago that I did, that a big part of our energy has gone into providing strong workforce development solutions for companies that are looking for a location. One of the primary ways that we've done that is through something that was created in fiscal year 20, the Virginia Talent Accelerator Program. This is a new, very distinctive service that we offer that helps companies recruit the people they need and then to rapidly train them up when they're doing a major business location project. That program has helped secure nearly 13,000 jobs just in its very short history, including more than 7,000 new jobs committed to Virginia just since FY22. It has come out of nowhere to be ranked one of the top programs of its kind in America. It's number one by one measure, number two in another third-party ranking. Very proud of that and grateful for what you've done to support it. And then finally, I mentioned the impact of our international trade promotion services. We're helping nearly 500 companies, Virginia companies, every single year develop the capabilities to export to other places around the world. That is generating tremendous economic benefits for Virginia. The latest measure shows that those Virginia businesses, as a direct result of these programs, have sold an additional $1.5 billion in international sales. That supports more than 13,000 trade-supported jobs in Virginia. Yes, sir.
On the business-ready sites, I know we've invested a lot. The grants are going out. What kind of interest has it generated from manufacturers and other folks interested in those sites and being willing to lease or purchase them and start their businesses?
It's had a profound impact, Mr. Chairman, and I'll just skip ahead to. Can't see the slide numbers on the screen, but I think I'm at slide 31 if my eyes are not deceiving me. So what you're looking at here, so the way to think about these investments in sites is it takes a couple of years from the time we make an award to the time where you really start to see kind of wins, if you will. But what you're looking at here, and again, we've got a lot of catching up to do. Prior to the award that was made a year ago, the $90 million in awards that went out, and that money is being spent right now, the Commonwealth did invest a modest amount of money in sites through fiscal 22, about $8 million altogether. And what you're looking at in this chart on the right-hand side here is which economic development project wins were supported by that $8 million. Now, it took a lot more than the $8 million to get this done. The vast majority of the investment that was made in these sites that these manufacturers chose was investment that was made by localities across Virginia. So we were kind of like the icing on the cake that these localities baked in terms of their sites. But what you can see here is that that modest amount of activity has generated very significant economic development wins across the Commonwealth. Virtually all of these are in manufacturing or logistics, so these sites are generating significant sort of industrial activity, including the largest capital investment ever in Henry County, Virginia. That's the county around Martinsville. Look at the bottom. For those of you just thinking about the state fisc, look at the bottom left there. We estimate that these projects are generating about $3.5 million in new annual state revenue every year, $3.5 million per year in new revenue. So this is designed not only to secure job creation, it's also designed to be a net revenue positive activity for the Commonwealth to ensure that we have the resources to invest in other important public services. I will also, just flipping back to the prior slide, say, again, we've got a lot of catching up to do. What you're looking at here is, particularly on the left-hand side, is the opportunity cost of not having done more of this over the last several years. Since 2016, we estimate that we've lost more than 50,000 new direct jobs because we have not had the inventory of project-ready sites available. More than $100 billion in CapEx. The revenue numbers for those of you thinking about the general fund are enormous, on the order of $500 million in net new state revenue to the general fund each year. Now, to be sure, we would not have won all of these projects even if we had made the investment, but you can just see the numbers are very, very large. Even if you assume just a small fraction of this activity would have come to Virginia, it would have made a very big impact, and it certainly would have been a revenue positive impact for the Commonwealth based on how we are administering this program. Mr. Chairman, any additional questions on that?
Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at the table you're on, page 21. Where do you see the most opportunity for jobs to grow?
It is 21.
And I noticed you said Virginia lags competitor states for greenfield manufacturing. Are those green jobs? Are we not providing incentives for a green economy to flourish?
It's a great question. So when I say greenfield manufacturing projects, I'm talking about a project that would basically be kind of new to Virginia, not an expansion of an existing firm. So in economic development speak, greenfield is all about kind of a new project location versus the expansion of an existing. Now, to be sure, many of those manufacturers do have a strong commitment to environmental stewardship, and they're certainly all subject to environmental regulations and responsive to incentives.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Reeves.
just a quick question for you. I think I'm on. Now I'm on. I don't know. I'm going through your slide deck and I'm looking at a few of these things like VE, DIG, and it kind of reminds me of the military with all the acronyms here. I don't know what a PAW is, P-A-W capitalized.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
What does that mean?
I grew up in a military family, so I can appreciate that. It's prevailing average wage.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I would say many of our incentive programs are tied to the prevailing average wage. The idea is that the jobs that we incentivize are typically required to be at or above the prevailing average wage in the locality. The idea is that we want to improve sort of the quality of the jobs that are available. Picking up on Senator Favola's comment just a second ago, it may be helpful to just spend a minute on this chart because I think it relates to something that you were maybe getting at. You were asking about manufacturing and so forth. What you're looking at here, it's a bit of an eye chart, but what this shows is the breakdown of jobs, direct jobs that have announced in Virginia over the last 5 years or so by region, by industry. This is, let's see, apologize for jumping around here. I think this is chart number 9. So breakdown of jobs by industry, by region. So basically the bars represent the breakdown of direct jobs. What I want to point out to y'all is that for roughly 2/3 of our region, roughly 2/3 of Virginia's regions, manufacturing is either the majority or the strong plurality of jobs that are being created through economic development. So, you ask a question, Senator Favola, about hey, what's the biggest source? The biggest source of job, the biggest sort of potential source of job creation in Virginia is actually what you would think of as like knowledge work. So things like business services and financial services and so forth. I mean, the things that sort of predominate in Northern Virginia. That is true. That is the biggest single sort of growth engine that Virginia needs to tap into, and it is essential. I will also say that for most of Virginia's regions, it is manufacturing. That is, so both are really essential when you think about those big goals. And the good news here, just flipping back one slide, is that over the last few years, thanks to tremendous support from the General Assembly, from multiple governors, from some amazing partners in your districts and regions and communities around Virginia, we have had strong success, more than 800 project wins in every single region of Virginia, creating a total of about more than 125,000 new jobs and more than $100 billion in capital investment.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Reeves.
Just a quick question. I'm looking at that slide deck on 9, and with all the manufacturing, I'm looking at the agribusiness side. Is agriculture still our number one, agribusiness still our number one, like, gross domestic product from Virginia, or is that switched?
Yeah, it is. Agribusiness is certainly a very large sector. When I believe when folks say agribusiness is the largest sector, they're including sort of what you would think of as like agriculture in, forestry and so forth, growing the stuff, raising the stuff. I think it also includes the processing, which sometimes would get categorized as manufacturing if you think about taking products and, bottling it or turning potatoes into French fries or whatever. Not that we're a huge potato grower, but you know what I mean. Also, I think the logistics associated with that sometimes get counted. So yeah, it is true that when you kind of add it all up, agribusiness, has an enormous impact, but sometimes parts of that number get put in other places like manufacturing and logistics, depending on how you're doing the accounting.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And I'll just say that I mentioned that there are some places where we fall outside the top 10 still, particularly in the perception-based rankings. But if you look at slide 10 here, we've seen some really nice progress in rankings over the last several years. Not all of these are current, but all of these are certainly recent. One of the ones that we celebrated with the VEDP team recently is that bottom middle one, where for the first time ever, we were recognized as one of the top 5 state economic development organizations in America, based on surveys of site selection consultants. So very proud of that, as well as what we've done together to improve Virginia's business climate. This gets back, as we go to slide 11, to something that has kind of come out of the back and forth that we've had with Senator Favola, Senator Reeves. One of the questions we're asking is, what do we need to do in Virginia to fully achieve that first big goal, to position Virginia as a leading state for growth? We've improved there, but we are still not in the top 10 for growth. And so we've been asking the same question that you were asking, Senator Favola, which is, what are the sectors that are most important? If we're going to be number one for growth, well, what are the sectors that are going to be most important to that? And let's double down on those sectors. We've been asking that question for more than a year now, as much progress as we've made. And through a lot of analysis and a lot of discussion, we've ended up with this chart that you see in front of you. There's a lot behind this, hundreds of pages, but what we're doing right now is basically doubling down on the sectors on the left-hand side of this chart. The sectors that you see on the left-hand side of this chart are what we call our core growth sectors. And altogether, what you see on the left-hand side of the chart represents about 2/3 of the potential job growth in Virginia and about 2/3 of the potential job growth in America. Half of it, by the way, is in knowledge work, what I was describing just a second ago. Now, we're going to continue to go after the things on the other side of this, on the right-hand side, using traditional tactics. But let me describe to you what we think it means to double down, and that's what you see on slide 12. So doubling down on this really means 3 things, and we're going to need your help to do these 3 things. The first thing is it means we need to have greater depth at VEDP to focus on these core growth sectors. And greater depth for us means we're going to build dedicated teams to do this, and we're going to equip those teams with economic development expertise, the stuff that we're already really good at, or at least pretty good at. But we're also going to equip these teams with deep industry expertise. So you're going to see people with economic development backgrounds on these teams, as well as folks who come out of industry who have deep industry expertise and relationships. And then secondly, we're going to give them a 2-part charge. we're going to tell these teams, number one, we want you to do the things that VDP has done well traditionally. We want you to bring deals to Virginia. We want you to engage with the business community, engage with the businesses in your core growth sectors, and we want you to bring leads that we can turn into project wins for Virginia that create jobs and invest capital. But in addition to that sort of transactional deal function, we are also charging these teams with something new and something that is equally important, I would say kind of new to VDP. And that is, we're saying you need to be in the business of building strong ecosystems in which these sectors can thrive. So it's a combination of both deal excellence and building the ecosystems. And to do that, we're going to need a new and even more collaborative and more aligned level of collaboration across Virginia, because so much of what we need to do to build thriving ecosystems for these businesses and for the people in these businesses lies outside of VDP. So this is what we're doing to double down on these core growth sectors and to align with our partners across the Commonwealth at the state level. So that's a big picture of VDP, where we are today, where we're going. I can dive into some of our incentive programs and so forth. I'm going to do this super quickly, guys. Slow me down if you want me to. Some of our most common
Mr. Chairman, I have a quick question.
Yes,
Senator Servo.
I think I kind of know the answer to this, but so I've been doing this for 14 years now, and I think in 14 years, I get those emails that say Governor so-and-so announces so-and-so jobs, wherever, blah, blah, blah. And I think I've been quoted in one of those once in 14 years. And so it just always, as somebody who gets those emails, I always feel like all these monies and investments are going into almost everybody else's district except for mine. And although I recognize that Amazon, I probably have some people who work at Amazon in my district, and right, and I probably got some other, but in terms of actual stuff in the areas I've been representing for 14 years, I think there was a project in Stafford or something that I had some warehouse down there or something, and there was something that happened. What is that all about? Is it just because I know Senator Favola's had a few because she's got some big corporate towers and stuff, and there's companies that relocate there and negotiate stuff, and I don't represent the biggest employer in my district. Is probably like, after the Fairfax County Public Schools, is probably like Walmart. They've got 3 big Walmarts and stuff. But it just seems to me like is it because my district, the way it happens to be drawn, just doesn't have a lot of commercial office space in it, maybe, or business type space, or no manufacturing space? I mean, I'm not sure if you're familiar with my district, but it's Eastern Fairfax County, Eastern Prince William, and Northern Stafford until now. It's all Eastern Fairfax. But any reaction to that?
Yeah, my first reaction is I'd love to dig into it with you and just kind of understand the district better and so forth. But my immediate reaction is that I think part of it is that the industries that predominate in Northern Virginia, and I think you would consider your district a Northern Virginia district.
Oh yeah, right in the heart of it.
They tend to not get sort of the growth in those industries tends to not get packaged up as economic development projects in the same way that manufacturing does. If you think about a manufacturer, they're basically saying, hey, look, we need to invest X amount of money, typically X millions, and often in the hundreds of millions. And we know that there's like 100 or 200 or 1,000 or 2,000 jobs that's going to come along with that, right? In other words, they're planning for these big capital investments that have a certain amount of job creation associated with them. If you think about the industries that predominate in your district and in Northern Virginia, they tend to be industries that are more it's organic growth, right? When they get a new contract, when they get new business, they can add a few people and grow along. So they don't tend to get packaged up as economic development projects quite as much. I think that's part of the issue. I will also say it's part of the reason that we need to put a lot more energy there. And this goes back to the great question that Senator Favola asked a second ago. We need to put a lot more energy into, and we need to keep our foot on the pedal on manufacturing for sure, but we need to recognize that about half of the total job growth that we have the potential to secure in Virginia is job growth that is in what you would call knowledge work, business services, financial services, aerospace and defense innovation, software and cybersecurity, but it's not always going to get packaged up as a traditional economic development project where a site consultant brings me a deal and says, give me an incentive package, give me a site, bid on this. We're going to need to go about this work differently if we want to see better results in these sectors. And that is what we're calling it the innovative framework for economic growth. But when I was talking about we need to develop, when we've done this, dedicated sector teams, not just focused on announcing the deals, but creating an ecosystem that is going to drive growth, that's going to drive job creation, that's going to be attractive to the individuals in these sectors. I believe that is the future of economic development, and it's a way to really align this model with all of Virginia. We need to keep it up with the manufacturing wins, but we need to go a lot deeper in places like your district.
Mr. Chairman, to help Senator Servo, if it makes him feel better, Marine Corps Systems Command, all of those things, when they vote tomorrow to the CR, there's a bunch of money in the appropriations for all those contractors, and they've been growing exponentially. And you know where my office is, in that area of Stafford around Quantico based on their mission set today. So I think that's an area that economic development needs to truly go after, because that money is flowing out of DOD right now into these contractors.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really
Representing
think
Fort Belvoir, I say amen. So, yeah. Yeah, no, Quantico. I used to have Quantico also. Yep.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So, yeah, I'll be super brief on these incentive programs. Let me know if you guys want to dive in. I will say that this first one, the Commonwealth's Development Opportunity Fund, is one of the most common ones we use. It is a very effective, competitive program. It's also something that's very flexible, which is why we use it a lot. These other two here, the VIP program and the VDIG program, also important, not used quite as frequently just because they tend to be used for a particular set of circumstances. I will say this VIP program is going to become a lot more important. This is the only incentive program that we have in Virginia that can be used just to incentivize capital investment without job creation. You might wonder, well, why is that important? Well, often a company is looking to make a capital investment that would basically give a new lease on life for the existing jobs for another generation, where we are competing for that capital investment against plants in other states. We really need to do that. It's a great program. It's hit its cap. And so it's a legislative issue where we would need to change the cap. I know the economic development community is going to be bringing that to you. I will also say the way the payout, JLARC has recommended changes in the way the payouts for these two programs work, VIP and VDIG, basically pushing those forward so companies don't have to wait quite as long. It would still be post-performance, but pushing those forward. A couple other programs that are less frequently used, the first two on this page, MEE and NCIP. These are used very rarely. I've not seen these programs used more than once or twice in my entire career in Virginia. JLARC has recommended that both of these programs be eliminated, which is something that we would not oppose. And then also, I think you guys are very familiar with the data center sales and use tax exemption, given all the attention on that one. I've got a few pages here. This one is out of order, but several pages on our very well-designed international trade programs. Again, we have expanded all of these with strong support of the General Assembly. We're now supporting more than 500 Virginia businesses, or approximately 500 Virginia businesses, every single year with these programs. That is generating a lot of activity, including a lot of activity in districts in Northern Virginia based on the nature of Virginia's export economy. I will also say that a major focus, again, has been on strengthening Virginia's talent solutions. Virginia has distinguished itself by being, as far as we know, the only state that offers a choice between this top-ranked full-service solution, the Talent Accelerator Program, where we provide a comprehensive, customized recruitment and training solution for a business. No money is exchanged. We provide a service. Or they can get a grant up to $1,000 per job through the VGIP program to offset their recruitment and training costs. I mentioned the Virginia Office of Education Economics, or VOE, a moment ago. I think we've largely covered sites, but I'll just say a few more things on this in case you have additional questions. But one is the primary site development program we have in the Commonwealth is the Virginia Business Ready Sites program. That's at the top of page 20 for those of you that are following along. It's a matching grant program. Localities have to apply. The demand from localities vastly exceeds the amount of money we have to award. A much smaller program is the Brownfields Restoration Fund. It's something that VDP administers in partnership with DEQ. It basically helps to remediate sites that have been damaged environmentally so that they can be put back in commerce. Relatively small amount of money, but it's made a big difference over the years for many of these sites. Also, there's a relatively new program called the Virginia Business Ready Sites Acquisition Program. I would underline acquisition. The idea with this program, this was created just last year, I believe, is to put the Commonwealth in a position to basically develop one or more mega sites. The mega sites, the 1,000+ acre sites, typically are one of the weakest parts of our portfolio in Virginia. And so that's a place where we need to put a lot of energy. And this program has equipped us to do that in the driver's seat, if you will, not necessarily having to wait for an application from a locality. It's absolutely something that we're going to do collaboratively with any localities that have properties that could be developed this way. I do have a lot of information here on sites. Unless there's additional questions, Mr. Chairman, I just might skip over it and see if you guys want to come back. I will say for
Mr.
many...
Chairman,
Senator Sherwood.
I was a question about sites, but you talked about exports a minute ago, and my recollection was like 15 years ago when I first started trying to pay more attention, our number one export was like semiconductors, and I think Dominion shut down, and now we're number one coal. 2 is probably like soybeans or something, and 3 is semiconductors because Micron is still chugging along. I haven't heard you talk about any of these federal acts that are out there, like the CHIPS Act, the IRA,
Sure.
et cetera. I mean, it's not clear to me how many of any of these things you've ticked off so far try to leverage those opportunities, because I know there's a lot of states that are trying to chase that money down like crazy, and
Absolutely.
there's been a little bit of some states, some governors' politics seem to get in the way of going after certain pots of federal money that had popped up in the last couple of years. I mean, is there CHIPS Act, IRA, I mean, all this stuff. There's tons of federal cash out there for this stuff. What are we doing about all that?
Totally. I'll say a couple of things. First of all, when it comes to exports, just very briefly, if you look at the dollar volume of our exports, it tends to be dominated by services. It's not the stuff that gets shipped through the port, but it's services from that Virginia is exporting, including technology services. I'm sure a lot of it's in your district.
Where do you find that data?
The feds publish it. Now, if you wanted to know who is Virginia's single biggest exporter, you've got to sort of suss that out by just asking individual companies. That data is not available in an organized way. But I will tell you that the examples you provided of the goods exports, including semiconductors coming out of Manassas, those are absolutely some of the top goods exports in terms of dollar volume today. Now, going back to your question about CHIPS and IRA and some of these other extraordinary federal programs that are sort of the COVID era, that federal policy framework, multiple federal policy frameworks have unleashed a wave of advancement manufacturing investment in America. Electric vehicles, electric vehicle batteries, semiconductors, and so forth. Many of those projects have looked at Virginia. These are typically very large advanced manufacturing projects that require a very large site. And I think you know where I'm going with this. When you look at that, in fact, this chart that I have up here on the screen, which is chart number 21, this chart tells a big part of that story. Because Virginia was relatively late to the game in developing sites, and because we had very few large sites in proximity of significant workforce areas, we missed out on a lot of this investment over the last few years. And much of what contributes to these big numbers that you see on the left-hand side of slide number 21 is semiconductors, electric vehicles, electric vehicle battery manufacturing, and related capital investments that were supported by the federal programs that you just named, Senator.
Okay, so you say it's just we don't have the sites to compete for those? Is all you're
That has been.
That's the only reason. It's not a question of we're not chasing the money. We're collecting.
We're absolutely chasing the money, but the dollars come with the project. So you've seen new programs set up like VAST, the Virginia, I think, Alliance for Semiconductor Technology, intended to align and market our many assets, including our higher education and research assets for semiconductors. We are under consideration for projects in these sectors right now. So we are absolutely being considered. The most common reason you have not seen more, the biggest reason by far that you have not seen more Virginia wins in electric vehicles, electric vehicle battery manufacturing, and semiconductors is because we have not had the large sites in proximity of the large workforce populations to be competitive for these projects.
As a matter of fact, I believe we lost one project in North Carolina based on workforce.
That is a huge issue. Yeah, states that have a project-ready site in proximity of a population center where you can get a large amount of workers have tremendous advantages. Now, most of those sites are now gone because we've had this big wave of industrial investment over the last several years. So the sites are very picked over. Virginia will be putting itself in a very good position by investing in sites and catching up and closing that gap.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Favola.
Isn't Go Virginia one of their goals, if you will, is sort of creating these partnerships with universities and prospective employers and actually preparing sites to be ready?
It is part of what they do, and I will say that we've always had a very collaborative relationship with Go Virginia, including in site development, and this new model I was talking about a moment ago is really deepening that collaboration and alignment.
So a follow-up question, Mr. Chairman. We have so many efforts going on to sort of reach the same goal. So who's actually taking the lead on this site development? Would you say it's more Go Virginia, or is it your agency, or is it a combination, and then local government gets in the middle of this too?
I would say it's evolved. Until a few years ago, it was the Tobacco Commission that did more than anybody else. Because there was no other state money going into sites.
Right.
More recently, which is to say just over the last few years, it's been a strong collaboration between VDP plus Go Virginia plus the Tobacco Commission. VDP has, I think, the most advanced sort of staffing capacity when it comes to sites, and our site experts serve on the Go Virginia review panels that determine when Go Virginia invests. I will also say that the way that the General Assembly has designed our VDP site development programs focuses them on the larger sites. So we are required, based on the way the statute is written, based on the way the code is written, to focus on sites that are 100 or more acres in size. There's a 50-acre threshold in the western part of the state where you have, more topography, more, you know what I mean. So where a lot of the Go Virginia investment has tended to focus is on some of the sites that are either not eligible for the VDP programs or as a sort of partner funding source to get those sites over the line.
Okay. Thank you.
So just picking up kind of where I left off on the different incentive programs and so forth. For the larger project announcements, those are typically reviewed by the major Employment and Investment Project Approval Commission, or MEI. I think you guys probably know a bit about MEI. This is, again, kind of an eye chart on slide 24, but, kind of an executive summary here is that generally speaking, any project for which we are proposing $10 million or more in state grants has to be reviewed by MEI. And then, of course, after MEI blesses it, it's required to be approved by the full General Assembly. We've seen a lot of very significant wins through that partnership with MEI and the General Assembly. The projects you see on slide 13 are just some of them. Obviously, some very prominent ones, including a few that have been announced quite recently in the last year or two. Just to turn our attention briefly to VDP's budget priorities, I wanted to mention some of the important things for economic development that are in the proposed budget from the governor. There are a number of budget items that you will be considering that are that tie to the programs and investments that I've already described. Additional funding for the Virginia Business Ready Sites program, grant program. Again, that's the matching program. $150 million in year one, $50 million in year two. Also another $25 million for the sites acquisition program in year one. Item C here on page 27 is something that I wanted to draw your attention to. One of the things that I hear most frequently from different regions in Virginia is we need to do more to market ourselves strategically to get certain people to stay here. Think about university grads, think about exiting veterans, and also to get people who would like to move to Virginia to come here. So there's a $15 million one-time part of the budget that would set up basically a fund that VDP would manage in collaboration with other state entities for this purpose. We would also align with regional efforts. Yes, sir.
Do you guys already work with the V3 program?
We do. We do. The Virginia Values Veteran Program, and yes, sir, we sure do. And I will say, we need to stand this up, but I think that one of the most important elements of this is to go after greater retention of existing veterans who are at Virginia facilities. I think that's just the low-hanging fruit of this. And we're already working closely with the Hampton Roads area in particular to begin standing that up. And we're also working with every region of Virginia to develop kind of similar strategies. The last two items are basically budget items that are fulfilling budget commitments that the Commonwealth has essentially already made through incentive commitments to both Wells Fargo and to AWS. The last slide I have here is focused on operational budget items for VDP. This first one is for the innovative framework is to provide the funding we need to fully staff this new model that I was just describing to you, basically putting greater focus on those core industries and to really focus on ecosystem building as much as transaction. Secondly, the Virginia Office of Education Economics is still in its sort of infancy, and we're trying to ramp that up, and so that's what item B is about. As we invest more in sites, in order to make sure that we can responsibly manage those dollars, we need a little bit more help for staff capacity related to sites administration, and that's what item C is about. And then finally, we've recently launched a new VEDP office in Taiwan, focused on attracting foreign direct investment, but also helping Virginia companies export to Taiwan in line with Executive Order 25. And so that's what that last item is about. Mr. Chairman, those are all of the key points that I have prepared. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jason. I have two questions. First, how do we compare to other states in terms of the investment we put into an organization such as VEDP here in Virginia? How do we stack up in that area?
I would say on some measures we stack up very well. Our international trade development program is best in class. I think it's probably the best of its kind in America. Most of our core functions are pretty well developed. and stack up well. We stack up poorly on marketing. That is an area that really stands out as a negative. I would say that there, some of the things that the other one is site development. I would say that over the last year and what's been proposed in this budget is where we need to be, but we're catching up from 20-ish years of not putting much money in there at all, while other states have invested. So I would say in many respects, VDP is well equipped, but there are a couple areas where we're either doing a lot of catching up, or where we just have this kind of major gap, and marketing is a big one.
Okay, and the other question was the Bristol Inland Port, or Inland Port, period.
Yeah.
Where does that stand, and what would that mean to our economic development in the Commonwealth if we were to have such an inland port located in the right place?
Yeah, it is something that is being very actively and carefully evaluated. VDP is working closely with the Port of Virginia on that. The Port of Virginia is in the lead position. I mean, this is really, we're at a point now where I think the decision is primarily going to rest on, do you have sort of an operational environment in that location that would justify the economics of an inland port? And that's something that the Port of Virginia is uniquely capable of determining. We're obviously going to support them. I think in terms of the benefits, it would mean one of the big things that it would mean is that you would have a very distinctive asset in the Washington County area that would be attractive to manufacturers, existing manufacturers, but also to other companies that are moving goods, and that could move them more cost efficiently, but also more safely if part of it was on rail. Again, it's a very important technical evaluation. One of the things that needs to be considered there is that it's not just about Virginia manufacturers and others in the area being able to sort of export. You also need a certain amount of activity in the same area that imports, so that you can have kind of a balanced flow of containers and other cargo in both directions. That's about everything I know about inland ports, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Senator Servo.
Yeah, I got another question. So I said this is a general question. I'm not sure it really dovetails with anything that you've asked, but I mean, it relates to the stuff you've asked, but one of the things that we're being asked to look at right now is whether to utilize the state's full faith and credit bonding authority to help with economic development.
Sure.
And I was just curious if you had an understanding as to whether other states use that tool for economic development, or whether or states in a region or anything else. It's all new to me, so I'm still.
Yeah. I will say, Senator Servo, it's relatively new to me as well. I was definitely very involved in this particular project that you're referencing, and I'm familiar with the deal mechanics of what has been proposed. I'm definitely not an expert on how other states finance these things, so I can't comment on that. What I understand to be true is that when you look at the sort of ROI of this deal for Virginia, how much revenue we would be putting in relative to, and again, no new revenue being put into the deal, but the revenue streams generated by the project being put into the deal, and basically what the net impact to Virginia's general fund would be at the end of the day. I think it is an uncommonly revenue positive deal for the Commonwealth, and I think that is something that you do not see as frequently in other states.
I get that part. That's a different issue, but
yeah,
what's related but different. I mean, I'm just trying to understand what tools other states use, and it strikes me that if we were to create an authority to do a project using the state's bonding authority for this, then the next request we might get, hey, we got this site in Pennsylvania or Mecklenburg, whatever, can we create an authority down there to borrow a bunch of money for somebody down there, and they're going to build a battery plant, and it's going to be a lot cheaper than private financing, and then we're looking at that, and then we're looking at that again year after year after year. People want to come in and use the bonding authority for that instead of for other priorities. We usually use it for like higher education buildings or other things. I'm trying to get an understanding as to whether you have an awareness of whether other states use that weapon in this arms race that we seem to be in with other states trying to capture projects. And that's something I don't know the answer to.
Yeah, I don't either, not to that question. I will say I do not anticipate bringing you a site development project with that sort of financing arrangement.
Okay.
Any other questions? Well, Jason, thank you so much for
thank
this
you all.
presentation.
Thank
You
you
all
all.
have just done an amazing job of getting this Commonwealth up and moving in the economic development area, and we still have a lot of work to do. I would like in the future to try to schedule one of our meetings at VEDP. There's nothing like seeing it firsthand. Look at the accelerator program and what have you. It's just over at the James Center, just a couple of blocks away. This is, by the way, our permanent meeting time and location will be today, Tuesdays, 4:30. That's correct, is it not, Kendra? Okay, thank you. And the last thing before we adjourn is that the staff, for many, many good reasons, does not take our notebooks home. So please leave them here. They will be added to over time. And if there's nothing else, subcommittee will rise. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you all.
The Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia.